In progress.
I'm going to just check you to mayor action.
Yep.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay, on you too, Mayor.
Thank you. Welcome to the Chatham Township Committee meeting of April 9th, 2024. Can I ask everyone to rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are returning from executive session, so adequate notice has been given. We did receive confirmation of that. And we are opening our hearing of citizens. Mr. LeConte, can you read the guidance for the hearing of citizens?
Members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphone to be heard. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name and spell your last name and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services.
Thank you. Do we have anybody on, well, did you get any messages today?
We did not get any written comments for this evening.
Thank you. And how about online?
Let's see, we have 1 hand raised on Zoom.
Okay.
Mr. Carr, you're live.
Hi, this is Stuart Carr from 3 Crestwood Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Carr.
Hi, good evening. Stuart Carr, CARR from 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township. Speaking tonight briefly on the Oprah item that you have on the agenda, kind of paraphrasing some of the comments I've made via email over the last couple of weeks. Number 1 item is, again, I assume that we're going to be challenging the attorney to kind of critique the statements by Attorney Griffin and Cafferty and Kevin Walsh, et cetera, down in Trenton during the Senate hearing on the 11th of March in order to kind of do a counterbalance to the presentation that the attorney made at the last meeting, which again was very good about the positives of the Oprah, but didn't really go into the, oh, by the way, gotchas component to the Oprah. So I'd like to, again, hopefully see a more balanced presentation today and have a pretty active critique by the members of the committee back and forth on some of the pros and cons of actually what's going to be going on with that legislation. Again, absent the School Boards Association, all these other folks, there are very, very few people who are actually proponents of this amended legislation, except for those who, again, have a selfish interest, I think, in doing that. And again, perhaps I'm misguided, perhaps all those other attorneys are misguided, but it looks like, again, they're onto something, and really the public is not getting the best end of the stick with respect to this. So I'm hoping that, again, the attorney can give us a balanced view and that we can have some critique, and dialogue. Relative to that, again, we know that Mayor Conley over in Madison is now the incoming president of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors, just found out the other day. And he obviously has a very strong view, apparently, on the benefits of this legislation. I hope that Mayor Ewald and also her sister over in sister town in Chatham Borough, Mayor Dempsey, can speak with him publicly and kind of figure out from his perspective just why that's so good for the residents versus what these other whistleblowers slash good government types are looking for at that point. Okay. Again, I would also encourage everybody, if you haven't, to take a look at that 4-hour presentation that was done, or 4-hour hearing on the 11th, to get a little bit more view of what some of the different people said about that particular activity. Okay, so again, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm out to lunch with respect to concern, but I really think that we're not getting complete, clarity on what exactly the potential concerns are with respect to this legislation. And there are a lot of specifics in both the written and oral commentary. Hopefully the attorney has had time since the last couple of weeks to look at that and put that out. Because again, it's very good for administrators, very good for clerks, very good for most elected officials to have this lower level of transparency. But I think, again, as the fiduciaries for the residents of Chatham, and again, politicians in general, would hopefully be looking out for us, even though against potentially your selfish interest with respect to transparency and accountability and that type of thing. So anyway, I look forward to hearing the comments in a little while from the folks, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments? Or anybody else from the public?
No, that was the only raised hand.
Okay, thank you. And seeing no one in the audience, I will close the public hearing. So we're going to start with ordinance 2024-07. No, we're gonna, because we have it on the reports, on the, we'll be discussing that later, so.
Okay.
Okay, ordinance 2024-07, bond ordinance for property acquisition, and this is we're opening the public hearing. Do I need to motion?
No, we just do
the
the hearing
public hearing?
first, and then we'll do the motion later.
Okay, so we are opening the public hearing specifically for ordinance 2024-07, which is the bond ordinance for the acquisition of what is commonly known as the Fensky property on Southern Boulevard.
No hands raised.
Thank you.
Actually, we do have hand raised now. Mr. Carr?
Hi, Stuart Carr, once again from 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township. Just double checking versus a couple of weeks ago whether there's been any change with respect to the status of the purchase and sale agreement or the general negotiations with the current owners of the Fensky property. If we can get a brief update on that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Shoddy, do you want to, there's really no update to give.
The update is that the ordinance is on for public hearing and adoption this evening. That's all the update there is.
Yeah.
Nothing else can be disclosed to the public other than we're moving the process along by way of this ordinance.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing I would say is we're all in support of moving forward and trying to wrap things up as quickly as possible. Normally, we wouldn't take action during a workshop, but this is something that we want to make sure we get done timely. So that's pretty much all we could share at this point. Yeah, okay. So, anybody else public hearing? Any other hands raised?
No other hands.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing for ordinance 2024-07. And this is the adoption then for this one?
Yes.
Okay. My timing is off as to what's happening with what. Okay, so I need a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-07.
I'll make such a motion.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can we get a vote, please? Roll call vote?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Troy?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2024-08, authorizing the property acquisition. I will open the public hearing. Any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay. And seeing that no one in the audience is rushing to the mic, I will close the public hearing for 2024-08, and I will ask for a motion to adopt that ordinance. And again, it's authorizing property acquisition.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And any discussion? I forgot to say last time.
I would just like to say, just for the public's benefit, just summarize what this is from, in my understanding. It's just, we're authorizing the acquisition of what's known as the Fensky property. It's a piece of property right alongside Nash Field, and it's could be added to the open space of our town. And the previous ordinance was a bond ordinance, which is also referenced in this, and is up to a maximum of $419,000 in principal amount in terms of the bond. So this is a good thing for the town. The bond ordinance that backs this could eventually, when the note is converted to an actual bond, that bond has a amortization life of 40 years, which is a wonderful thing in terms of paying it back and its useful life of acquiring, property in Chatham Township. We have a wonderful, vibrant town, and we are gaining more value than now and for the future, I think, for residents. So I think this is a great acquisition, and if you could do it with your own funds, I think you would. So that's a good litmus test for the public, regardless of all the other benefits, the recreation space. So it's a good financial move, in my view. It's a good move for recreation. It's a good move for open space. It's a good move for the beauty and livability of our town, for the quality of life here. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's go to a vote, please.
Mr. Lewis,
yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi,
Yes.
and Mayor Ewell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we have resolution 2024-105, local recreation improvement grant for Mountain View Playground. Mr. Shadi, could you give like a brief overview for this?
Thank you, Mayor. So, again, the reason this resolution is on the agenda, workshop agenda, is because the grant deadline for this is coming up after, or rather before our next meeting, our regular meeting. Now, you may recall that we did do a resolution for the local recreation improvement grant last month, I believe it was, earlier last month, last month. We made the deadline at that point. The deadline shifted. The state extended the grant deadline. So in an effort to put together the most robust application and one that we thought has the best chance of succeeding and will serve the most people, it was my feeling that we should probably shift that application from the Colony Pool Playgrounds to the Mountain View Playground. Reason being is the Colony Pool Playground is seasonal and it is restricted to members. So in terms of when the state is looking at these in benefit analysis and they're looking at the the ultimate improvement and who will benefit from that, this has most of the population of Chatham that can benefit from it as opposed to just the membership. So John's team over at Mott McDonald is putting together the application. What you have before you is just the shell, sort of a draft. I haven't reviewed it because I didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but also solicit your feedback because there was some feedback at the last grant application, and then incorporate whatever thoughts or feelings you have on this, or if you don't want to shift from Colony Pool to the Mountain View Playground, then we can continue to focus our efforts on just that grant application. And so I didn't want to incur more time and effort on this if that's not the wish of the governing body.
Well, and just to be clear, they're both going to get funded. The question is what puts us in a better position to get
money from the state. Correct. Both playgrounds, a number of playgrounds, a number of facilities were flagged in our capital plan, which we'll be reviewing in May. But the playgrounds were all deemed to need updating, upgrading, and so it's, as you just said, Mayor, we're not taking money away or improvement away. We're simply shifting what we think would be the most advantageous for getting grant dollars.
Okay, thank you.
And so, two questions is, do you support this resolution? And then two, is there any feedback or commentary on the application that you want us to incorporate?
Okay, so we'll start out with a motion to approve this resolution 2024-105.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
Any discussion? I think Mr. Shadi, adequately explained why we're switching gears on this, and we want to be in a better position to get those grant funds, so I'm in support of this.
I'll just make a couple comments about this. I think that at Colony Pool, or at least from the Colony Pool committee, this improving the playgrounds never came up as a recommendation, and the reason was that we had done quite a bit of requests to make repairs there. And in last year and the year before, the DPW had done a couple things, including we have a tremendous machine shop where they're able to fabricate and paint metal and weld. So they were able to do some substantial repairs of rusted parts and for the playground. So the playgrounds there were very stable. There was some splitting wood. They replaced that. They binded things. I mean, it took some work from the committee to feed that back, but all those repairs were made. So those are in pretty stable condition. The thing that would really be needed at Colony, along these kind of lines like this is slides, right? Because the slides, they kind of leak all over the place, and they've been there forever. The water slides themselves. So, but in any case, I just think for the future we should, maybe kick the way we kick things to the planning board, or we kick them to the zoning board just for comment. It would be interesting to just, formally kick, if we have the time, to formally kick these resolutions, to the pool committee just for feedback, and whatever committee that would be. If it's in the parks and we can kick it to open space for feedback, great, right? Gives them those committees some structured area to comment on. And in terms of moving it to Mountain View, I fully support that. I think that highlights the need at Mountain View to take a look here at these grounds to put them into better use. And I think partially, and we can talk about this later, but that has to do with open space as well. Here for the Mountain View playground. And then the last thing I'll just say about this recreation improvement grant is that the descriptions and the way it's written, certainly in comparison to what was at Colony, is robust and fine in my view. So I want to commend the staff on that job. Well done.
Great. Thank you. Can I get a vote, please?
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we are closing out of, not formally closing out of, but closing out of the formal section of our agenda and moving into our workshop agenda. So all of the action that needed to be taken was taken at this point. And everything else is for discussion for the next meeting on the schedule. Okay, is there a particular order you wanted to go in to make this manageable, or?
I would suggest, Mayor, the engineer, like anything related to the engineer.
Okay.
That way we can get him out of here. And
Thank you.
there weren't really many other things other than what's under admin as well for discussion. So everything else we go through. Who does start bouncing around?
Sure, let's go to, let's do,
So first one under engineering, he's got a professional service contract for pool improvements. That is the pool wall that is at Colony Pool that is in serious need of repair. At the next meeting, with the approval of the governing body, we have a resolution to authorize this and award this contract to Mott McDonald to do those improvements. So that way he can start putting together the bid specs, the design, all that, and that way we can go out to bid and have that ready to start. The goal is to have that start as soon as the pool season ends. So if anybody has questions for John on that. John, any comments on it?
No, it's
Okay.
very straightforward. It'll be we put enough detail in for a public contract, because you can't select the contractors. You want to put enough detail in there so that they build what we want. So it's going to be engineering plan specifications, bid period services, what we normally do.
There are a couple other that fall under the other departments, but John's here and is involved in all of them, so I'm going to bounce around before we go back to the road surfacing topic. The next one is the rejection of bids for the fiber loop project. Those bids came in, again, very high, but John, the chief, and I are working to figure out how we can get that scope in a more manageable way. We're looking at, John, if you want to talk about the two big drivers.
Yeah, sure. The original, the whole grant application, we were working with a particular vendor who made representation of what the value of the cost for the project would be, and so that's why we had to bid. We went out to bid, and actually went out to bid twice, and that vendor never bid the project, so we ended up getting bids from other vendors, and so after the bid was received and we're at a point to reject it, we did speak to that other vendor and just got some one thing that we did expand from the original scope of the grant application, but it was minor. But we had fingers going off to support the wastewater facilities, the plant, the pump stations, and so taking those away will bring down the cost. We also discussed the alignment of staying out of the county roads does bring down the cost of the project. And one of the things that they recommended is that there is, the cost is not just them to run the lines, but it's also to get the permits and have the utility companies, either JCP now and Verizon, to make room on their poles for this additional line. So that's additional work. They can estimate what that is, but they don't know exactly what that number is. And what they suggested, which is a good recommendation, was to just, when we structure the bid the next time, we would put in an allowance for that, and that we can, put in, so we'll just pay directly to the utility company of what that cost is versus getting a markup on them and doing so. That should bring the cost down. We're in the process of identifying all the poles. We're going to forward that to JCP and Verizon because both own poles in town, and try to get a better handle on that cost. The vendor made an estimate. He's thinking it's in the range of about $400,000. It's a very substantial. That's all half the grant is going towards just JCP now. So if we can bring that cost down, we can certainly get a handle on it. And also the police. We have the police, and they wanted to pull that out of their lump sum and put that into an allowance and cover the police that way. So the next time we go out to bid, we're thinking of scaling back the amount of cable that would actually be installed and just do exactly what the grant was intended for the police, and then we can always expand it later on. And then also, we can, if we go out the bid, we award, it's a design bid contract. So they'll basically design the fiber, they'll go out for the permitting, and then once we get that cost back from JCP now, that will give us some latitude if we want to make a minor change and do something else after they've designed it and after we get these costs back from JCP now, and just see how we may even negotiate with them and try and get things. So we are taking a much significant change in the scope of work when we go out to bid the next time. The first two bids were really just going based on the grant application, expanded it slightly, but our expectation was that we were going to get more interest in contractors bidding it, and we didn't. So we just, certainly the vendors that bid for the last two times, they showed interest in bidding it again. So we want to make sure that when we bid it the third time, we're adjusting now, not taking into consideration numbers that we got originally.
Okay.
Have you looked at the number of fibers in the bundle, and
Yes,
in terms of
yeah,
bandwidth?
Yeah, we are looking at the number, and we do want to get the cable. We do want to have the numbers to accommodate future build out. Once we get that wire, we want to be able to use it for other purposes in the future. We can build off of it. So we didn't want to cut back on the number of fibers and just do just for the police. We wanted to have that ability to expand it in the future.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but is it like 96 fibers? Is it like maxed out? Is that what you're speculating?
No, I don't think we went with the max. We didn't max it out. We looked at what facilities we might use in town, and that's what they do. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't recall. But that was worked out with our engineer and the police, and working that out with what the needs were and what the future needs might be.
So I'm trying to understand, you said avoiding the county roads. How are you avoiding the county roads? Because that's
we're still going to get it. Well, initially the expectation was to go because the one loop was going to go from Nash Field and go around to Shunpike Field and then up to Lafayette, up to Noe, and then going that run. They felt that we definitely need the run going down Southern Boulevard, but they felt going up Noe and going up Lafayette was just knowing the poles, not keeping off the county. They felt that would be less expensive. So even though it was slightly longer footage, they felt that was more economical.
Okay.
And frankly, in the bid, we can just give that's something that we can give them the option, because we have specific locations that we want to have monitored. So if they end up going a different route, that's not there's no facilities out on Shunpike that we were contemplating that we were going to connect anyway. So
Okay.
going the other route seems to be they expressed that would be less expensive.
So none of the facilities have been excluded though from what the plan is. So for example, it was supposed to come here. I think the last version had no, we're coming here to the municipal building.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. But we have the ability to come here. We're gonna be going down Mountain. We may just shave that off just to make sure we can build the minimum infrastructure given the grant amount. We can always expand that later on. Because we
Okay.
can certainly ask for another grant application that focuses then on, instead of the police, it focuses on utilities, and that we're focusing more on the sanitary sewer and those infrastructure, and as part of that grant application, we can ask to go to the police. So,
Okay.
I really wanna be able to bid this one more time and be able to award it.
Yeah.
So that's why we're cutting it back down, just to the bare bones, just to meet the obligation of the grant. And we actually did, the chief did reach out to the grant administrator, explained to him, he said, yeah, we can do this amount and still satisfy the grant requirements.
Okay, that was my other question. Okay.
And I know this was set up for a loop for redundancy purposes. Have you looked at eliminating the loop aspect and just going?
Yeah, the original loop aspect was actually starting to go into the borough, so we've just abandoned that to get, you
Okay.
know, let's, you know, stay within the grant scope, grant funding, let's not add, because we might as well, you know, instead of spending more township money, let's apply for another grant and try to expand it further with another grant versus taking too much of, you know, non-grant money and supporting it.
Any other questions?
So the next meeting, we'll have a resolution to, again, reject and authorize bidding.
Okay.
Another one, this one's under Public Works, but John's also been involved in that. If there's any questions, it seems pretty simple though. We did get bids on the DPW roof replacement, and it came in less than we budgeted and expected, so that's a good thing, right?
It's a good thing. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. It's a pretty much a straight replacement of the existing roof, that metal roof that's out there. There's no bells and whistles to it. It really was. The roof is in need of replacement, and we're replacing it in kind with some material and putting the gutters and everything back on it, fixtures.
John, I looked at two of them are right on top, two of the bids are right on top of themselves, right? And then
Yeah.
one's about 10% lower. Is there any concern with that gap?
There's always a concern, but there's really no, you know, the bidder didn't, you know, the New Jersey public contract law does allow a bidder, if he makes a mistake, he can actually within 3 days, you know, call, identify that I made a mistake and get out of his bid. It's lower, but not so much concerning that,
Okay.
that I would want to be, you know, kind of push the envelope, because we really have no basis to reject it.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
John, remind me again, what the original notion was, and that original notion was struck down because we did not account for the underlying plywood or something to that effect?
No, the original, we did have someone go out that gave a price for, under a co-op. And, so that, it kind of points out the fact that you really, you know, even though, you know, there's a means of not having to bid, we could have went with the co-op program and not had to bid it, but then we put more money into, you know, going through a co-op versus bidding it. So sometimes it is advantageous to bid a project. And the issue with the original concept was that let's eliminate the tin roof or steel roof, and let's just put plywood down and put an asphalt shingle roof. But the trusses, were concerns with the weight of the trusses. You know, the building is just a prefab building. It was something that the trusses are just not, you know, initially we were talking, you're looking at possibly solar putting on top of it, but the trusses just aren't enough, and we're gonna spend a lot of money to reinforce those trusses.
Okay, yeah, thank you for refreshing my memory, because I was trying to figure out how the bid was lower if we're just putting the metal. So I was thinking, what was the original plan? How do we have a higher number? But now it makes sense. Okay.
Great.
One other item, I'm sorry, under
Yep.
Public Works that I came in after the preparation of the agenda, so, and that is speaking on the topic of bidding and state contracts, the tree bids. We did go out to bid on the tree bids. If you may recall, last month you authorized us to do that. John helped put that together, Tina reviewed. Speaking of what's cheaper, not cheaper, those came out more expensive than the co-op. So that's that for engineering legislation. So I'll take us back to his report, and I know there were some questions on that, and then we can talk about his 2024 road resurfacing project plan.
So, did anybody have questions for John on his report? And I know I had questions, but I think I got answers and everything, that's what I'm looking for right now.
Just one update on my report. Unfortunately, today I did get an update from DOT regarding the 2014 Safe Route to School grant. And
They did get back to you?
they did get back.
'Cause I
to me.
reached out to the
They were-
governor's
they were
office
gonna
again.
reject the bid. So we're in a process of either having to reject the bid or give the contractor an option to appeal. Want to try to avoid giving them option to appeal because the DOT, I was told, it takes even longer to go through this appeal process and get a hearing. And so they're getting back to me if we can just reject the bids, because it was above the engineer's estimate, and so we can reject it for that purpose, and we may want to do that in case to avoid this appeal process. Because basically they said it gives the contractor the option to appeal, but they said you're not going to win because they obviously didn't submit the appropriate paperwork, and so they're going to go through this whole process. It takes months and months and months, and just end up hearing that it's not going to go to their paper. So with that, we may be bidding this again. We may be building this next year by time we rebid it, and by time the civil rights department and the DOT then reviews this next bid. It takes another 6 months to get back to us on board. So
That is a very problematic office.
that is
It's
a
been a very,
problematic
very much of a waste of time and dragging us down rabbit holes that just spin circles.
I mean, we went through where we had a pre-bid meeting where we had civil rights people there at the hearing, to tell contractors how to fill out these forms. And this contractor that filled out the form wrong was at the hearing. He was told you had all opportunity to ask any questions on the form, and he still filled it out wrong. So, unfortunately, that's where we are. I also got an update on the 2016 and 18. 2016, it's in under review within their right-of-way section. They do hope that that's going to break soon so that we can advance that project in 2016. And I was told that they're not even looking at the 2000. They're looking at 2016, wanting to get that advanced so we can go out and bid with that one. They're not even looking at the 2018. They want to get the 2016 authorized before they even look at 18. So if you look at my report, it basically says that the final design is under review by the DOT. Well, they're not even reviewing the 2018 project. They want to get the 2016 project authorized.
Can't even get 2014.
Can't even get 14 done. So, unfortunately, not good news on the DOT front.
I did have some questions on the awarding of the engineering professional search for Colony Pool, the pool improvement, the pool wall. It looked to me like that was like more than $500,000 or I believe maybe I saw that in the capital plan. Is this the kind of range that we're in? Or
I think we're in the range of about 300. We're in that range. I'll refine that estimate as part of this process we can go through, but I think we're in that range.
And this is the sidewall?
Both sidewalls.
Both sidewalls.
Both sidewalls connecting to, the new concrete that we did, I believe, in 2016. So it's finishing off with the others. Basically, the side slope areas.
It's a tremendous amount of money. What is is there an option or a possibility that perhaps we would improve the pools more substantially than just building what we have?
Splash pad.
Yeah, there's always been like talk of like, hey, could we get something clear water, a clear water section? Does that make sense to look at that? How much more would that be? Because if we're doing both sidewalls, we're doing a major project here. Can we turn the lap lanes into clear water?
But we did look at filtration, because right now there's no filtration in the water. You're just pumping groundwater, treating chlorinating the groundwater,
Sure.
pumping it out, and
when you say a filtration system, when he's saying clear water pool, I'm thinking a concrete pool, cause you've got the two walls and the other. So if you have a discrete section of the pool, you're still saying to put in a filtration system?
Well, again, how you wanna move the water, if you're doing a clear water area, the only way you're going to do is to isolate that from the rest of the pool and then actually have to filtrate it because it's gonna be, separate, so.
Yeah.
Something that we can consider, it's just gonna be, a much larger project. We did look at repairs, they've deteriorated to the point that they need to be replaced, so we're at that point that we can't put a Band-Aid on it any longer.
Yeah. No, because that's been something that's been tossed around for years, is we lose people because they don't like the sandy bottom. I don't get it. I love the beach. My kids love the beach. But, and some people are just nervous, about their kids. And there are people who like to just exercise and be in clear lanes. So that has been a question that's come up many times, is whether or not to convert the lap blade section to concrete. And if we have to do the two walls anyway, and we're talking 300,000, and I don't know, is there a way to get some kind of estimate to do something like that? Just so we have an idea of what we're doing?
What exactly do you want to do? Put concrete in the floor? Is that basically, or just?
Is that
I
feasible?
can certainly put some quick estimates together, but yeah, that's just.
I think, my recommendation would be just kick it to the advisory committee. At least we have a committee that is functional and could work on this a little bit. If you don't wanna do that, that's fine too. Whatever we have to do with this though, I think it's gonna require something innovative, because if you were to even say, hey, I'm gonna make a regular clear bottom pool and it's just gonna be in the lap lane section, let's say, you still have the issue of there's sand everywhere else.
Mhm.
And so now kids are gonna be moving onto the dock and then bring sand into that pool. There's gonna be a lot of sand in that pool. It's gonna be very sandy bottom. Now you could vacuum it all the time. Or is there a system where we could just push water through it? Because currently the way the system works is well water pumped up, injectors put chlorine into it. It gets basically pushed into the pool. The pool has one outlet. Everything eventually gets pushed through the pool. So the water, whatever it looks like, it's some of the cleanest water because it doesn't stay in the pool for very long relative to another type of pool.
That's why it's so cold too.
It's so cold, yeah, because the water's moving through it all the time, right? But could we just simply push water through that concrete section? Or can we do a graded bottom there? Like, yes, it's concrete, but it's graded, and then somehow the sand gets pushed out, right? Because there's gonna be a lot of sand, and the purpose of this would be like really for swim team, lap lanes, follow the line on the bottom, a visual, really. Those are my thoughts. Like, I don't know that just a straight up like, hey, let's throw a backyard type swimming or regular Olympic style swimming pool like in the corner of Colony would work. I think requires a little more thinking than that because of the unique situation we have there. That's my input on it. But I do think it's worthwhile just to look at it in terms of cost, because even if it's $1 million, even if it's $1.5 million, for the taxpayer, having that clear water, I believe that will attract more people, and I think it makes the pool more viable for a long time. Colony Pool, for the longest time, it's before 2021, every single budget presentation it was, oh, we got these 3 issues, healthcare costs, personnel costs, and Colony Pool's dragging us down. That was always, so if you can plug that $200,000, $300,000 that comes out of the town every year, if that situation arises again, it's a real problem. It's a real problem. So this could fix that, and it's not really, $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but if you got $150,000 of membership fee more every year, that quickly goes away. So.
Yeah, I don't know what we're dealing with. So I think it's fun. Did anybody else have any comments on the topic?
No, I would just think there's a lot of things to consider, like what's even the capacity, what are we missing with the current membership, and then what's the capacity, and how many more members can we add, and it has to cap out at some point. So what's the max amount of revenue that we could get even at the current rates, or even if we raise the rates? So we'd have to do kind of that analysis. We can't just say we're gonna add thousands of new members to cover these costs, because we're gonna have to cap it at some amount of people. So I would like to see that kind of analysis, like how many people, how much would we have to charge for membership and that kind of thing. And how long, what's the return on investment of, say, $1 million?
Mhm.
That's what I would like to see.
Okay, so we need information gathering, and I think if we hit it at all angles, that's fine by me. So if we have John kind of thinking from his end, if you want to bring the advisory committee, get their input, and if, I don't know if we're able to, we've never hit a point where we had to worry about reaching capacity at Colony Pool. So, that would be a good problem to have.
I mean, there's code that, you know, goes based on, again, chlorination, volume, the space, how many bathers per, I mean, there's regulations on all of that, so it's not that hard to figure out, but, yeah, I just want to impress upon you that we are in April. The pool, you know, the pool off-season is gonna be September to next May.
Yeah.
And so whatever project, you know, is envisioned has to fit either within that, or there's a result in maybe a delay of some sort to the pool seasoning, pool season opening, and then, you know, the debt, I mean, whatever it is, if you're talking about I really don't see how doing that is gonna be less than 1.5, because you're talking about, again, new pump systems, filtrations, you know, a lot of other issues, but leave that to John. I've seen other pool projects before, and I can't see it being less than 1.5. To get that, especially because you got that mixed with the sand and the clear water.
Yeah.
And then, you know, what is your desired, you know, what is the expectation and desired time frame to recoup that investment in addition to, you know, the other costs? So, you know, how we get to making a decision on that and then being able to go out to bid and award it to get started, we're working within a tight time frame. This is, you know, this reared its head at the end of the season, you know, the crumbling of the walls, so it's not like, you know, we're leaving this to the last minute, we're moving as expeditiously as we can
Oh,
with
yeah,
this.
sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So we need to get the walls fixed this year.
Because
Yeah.
next year, we're gonna have, I mean, every year, the deterioration has been more and more significant. DPW does a patch job this year, you know, they did another patch job, it's not gonna last. I mean, chunks of concrete have been in the pool.
You know, this is not repair for this year, this is to get the bid documents ready so that we can, because this is gonna take, if we were to do it now, we're probably not gonna, we're gonna take the season out, you know, you're not gonna be able to open the pool up. So we like we did with the last wall, we had the bid specs done, we had the contract awarded, pre-construction meeting, and they started as soon as the pool was ended. So,
Wait, so the contemplated wall repair is anticipated to start fall of '24, right?
correct.
Yeah, okay, all right, I
Correct.
thought,
His, what we're talking about now is authorizing his professional services
Right.
work to put the specs, put the bid documents, do all the design, all of that, so that way it can then go out to bid. We'll probably, you know, if we do this authorization at the next meeting, John gets to work, then we're looking at probably those documents are ready to go end of June, maybe July for authorization to bid. We go out to bid, receive the bids, open them in August, and then award, you know, end of August, early September, so that way the work can
And
get
if we
started.
can do it sooner, we'll do it
Yeah.
sooner, because this way, you know, you put in the bid that the date they have to start, and if we just receive bids a little earlier, you know, it gives us the opportunity, if we have to reject bids and rebid it, it gives us that opportunity. We want that window, so we'll get it out as soon as possible. But typically, they would do the concrete work in the fall, you know, the winter usually hits, and then in the spring, before the season opens, they do any restoration items. That's the same way
Painting,
we do
there's
it.
gonna be
Yeah, they
ceiling
have to
painting.
reseed it again, and the same they do it, so it's, we'll be ready for the next season.
It can't be done in the spring? Or when, as soon as the,
It's not enough time.
not enough time?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, because the walls on the sides slope in, right?
Yep.
So if we rebuild again in a slope, what
Yep.
that's gonna do is really, for at least the deep end, or if we were to make any kind of clear water, it would preclude that. It would, so really, I mean, there is a happy medium here where you could say, like, well, what if we did a straight wall, right, on that part, and then maybe we could add to it in the future? I mean, there are ways that we could
Yeah,
get
so
creative or
certainly we
interesting.
can do a straight wall on the one side, and if we want sloped in the other, it's just, you know, that's appealing to have that slope on the one side. You can certainly do that, that's no big deal, it's actually easier to design a straight wall.
So on the deep water where the lap lanes are, you're saying that would be,
Yeah, we can make that a vertical wall all the way through.
yeah, that wall's dangerous anyway, because people go walking on it,
Yeah,
it's very
slip on
slippery,
it, yeah, I
yeah,
particularly like to do that myself.
okay. And then the other one, so it's the opposite sides of each other are the ones that have to be repaired.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm trying to remember, you said 2 walls.
Yeah, on either
Right.
side, you know, with the last time when we did in 2016, we just did where the diving board is the slide. You know, though, that wall is the primary wall that we replaced.
Mhm.
But we turned in, I think we maybe went 10, 15 feet, and then from that point, it's from the point where we left off, all the way to the end, to the shallow area, we
Okay.
replaced all those side walls.
Okay. Okay, so we're doing capital planning in May anyway. If we wait till May, is that throwing off your timeline? Is that really putting everything at risk?
I mean, it's not really changing my timeline. I mean, we did put in some money, for this and other improvements, but, I mean, either way, going from, 500 to 1-something million, because all that would be then coming from open space, which also, has a capacity.
Yeah, I don't know what dollar amount we're talking about. We're throwing out numbers and I have absolutely no sense of.
Yeah, I mean, I could, just laying fiber is, bids are coming in at 1.2. So you're talking about concrete, structural, pumps, a whole lot of things. I really can't see this coming in less than 1.5.
Yeah, and you're probably going to not get it all done in the winter time. It may be a challenge if we start to get a project that's over $1 million. It's probably going to push it through the winter. We may not be able to finish in the winter.
Okay, so you're gonna move forward, but we're thinking about where the pool, where the deep water is, with the idea that it's built in a manner that potentially could be converted at some point if we want to.
Yeah, we can, vent out a little bit more. Maybe we look at a bigger picture and then we phase this. This could be the first phase just to repair the walls and then allow the wall to be vertical in a certain location so that it can be expanded in the future.
Okay,
That's something we can look at.
everybody good with that? Okey dokey, thank you. All right, is there,
Report, we're
Where are
going
all
to
of the
report
places?
and road surfacing.
the report, so.
His report, because
Okay.
we bounced back to the colony pool
Yeah.
resolution, so, we had left off on the engineering report, if there were any questions, and then the 2024 road resurfacing project proposal.
So I did have a question. You said something about preparing for NJDEP stormwater audit, which I know, Mr. Shoddy had answered, what that was, and it is new, is my understanding of the
Well,
audit.
we were recently audited by the DEP regarding our stormwater compliance. We passed with flying colors.
Okay.
Just had to prepare for it, make sure DPW had all their paperwork that they do on their side, and we just made sure that they had it all neatly tabulated and ready to present to the DEP. It still took a couple hours to go through everything, but we're in full compliance.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I did wanna, could you, kind of speak to the damage at the colony courts? What happened there?
Yes, the contractor did have a punch list, and there was some cracking that started to emerge over the winter. And basically, the contractor started to make the repairs without notifying us. So, what you saw out there was him peeling the tape that he put down on the crack, and he just, we thought it was something more significant, but it was actually the contractor was the one who was prepping that and to refix the cracks. And so, yeah, it was just, and unfortunately with this contractor, that's been his MO from over the summer. We just could not get a schedule out of him, and he just would show up periodically. And so, that's what, we got him on the phone and we gave him an earful about it. But he's working on it now, and he says he's going to continue to work on it, weather permitting, and repair all the punch list items that he has to repair. So it was actually the contractor that made it look worse than it was.
Okay.
The challenge of dealing with the lowest bidders, and I mean, by all accounts, this contractor is not irresponsible, because they do striping on a ton of other projects around the state, but this is probably one of those.
Yeah, this always seemed to be a fill-in for them.
Yeah.
They would just, even though when they were doing it over the summer, they weren't constantly coming every single day. It was like every other day, every second day, they were just coming in and doing it as a filler, and it was very frustrating.
Mm.
But
So any sense when they'll be done, or generally speaking?
Well, this is a touchy area, touchy time of the year where we have to watch the temperature, we have to watch the weather. So, you know, they say they're committed to get it done as soon as possible. So they probably, I think they said they're gonna be going for at least 2 weeks to do the work.
Well, the schedule.
Well,
I
we're
got
in Tennessee,
today- The
so-
schedule I got today was, did you see that one or no?
It was,
You did,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It said next
they-
Wednesday.
Well,
supposedly.
basically, they said they're gonna be here every day.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a schedule, they were just
Yeah.
appeasing us with that one. They
Yeah,
didn't-
that's
they
why I was
didn't
wondering,
count for
because it
the
came
weather.
from the,
The tennis coach, right? So we're in tennis season right now, so it's invariably gonna affect the availability of courts for the high school teams, correct?
Yes.
It-
Yeah, I've
it
been in
used-
touch with them, so they
They
do
have
have some matches next
workarounds.
week. I don't know what their workarounds are, all I can tell them is what we know with our courts, and, you know, as regrettable and apologetic as we can be, but it's out of our control, there's really not much we can do, but I have been communicating with them to let them know.
So your understanding right now, based on discussions with the contractor, it is a 2-week job to complete whatever repairs?
Repairs.
But what happens if it's materially more than 2 weeks and it really impinges on tennis season?
Well, I think, you know, I think when we're getting, you know, I think towards the end of the week, we're gonna lose a couple days, because it's, you know, gonna get rain, they can't do any work in the rain, so it's gonna go on for two weeks, I would say possibly. So I think we can certainly ask him if we wanted to postpone the repairs, we can ask him to do that.
Well, at this point, they've already damaged, so they
Well,
have
yeah,
to do
they broke
something,
off, yeah.
and, you know, they started without our,
Yeah.
without
Or
our knowledge.
without our
So-
knowledge, they just kinda showed up.
And we also don't wanna push them too quickly, because if they do crappy work or just a rush job, then.
Yeah, we don't wanna be John going after their maintenance bond and chasing them after,
Mhm.
we want it done right.
Mr. Choi, if your concern is about the tennis program, they have the JV courts in the borough, right, slightly smaller, but when they converted courts to basketball courts and they revitalized their courts, they were not usable, and they shifted to us. And so there is a shift possible. I'm sure it's not good for the programs, and, you know, I'm certainly empathetic with the whole situation, but it is beyond our control, and I don't believe this is gonna disrupt tennis. And, you know, obviously I want it fixed yesterday, but I don't know if that's your question. Was that where you're going?
Well, I think at a minimum, we should contemplate if things do slide, which certainly can. Right? And it really is, I mean, we're in April, it's tennis season, they need the courts. So
Yeah.
the fact they have some courts available in the borough, I certainly think it mitigates the issue, but I'm sure they planned on using those colony
Yeah.
courts, so,
Yeah.
you know, at least keeps them
Yeah.
informed, and I think for ourselves to be ready for a contingency scenario if it stretches out materially more than 2 weeks, you know, at least have thought about it, given his behavior and
Yeah,
his
and
performance
frankly,
thus
he
far.
said he's gonna continuously work the courts as long as weather permits, but you know, frankly, I won't be surprised if he's not gonna show up one day and we're gonna be looking for him, like, where are you? He said you were gonna be here, and that's the days that we've had with this contractor, so, it's been a difficult project with this particular contract.
okay. And then my only other question was, regarding Dixie-Dale, the sidewalk. Cause there was something about, I can't remember what it said in your notes, but if we're looking at, what kind of escrow and punch list items they have, that sidewalk never looked like it was complete, or I don't know if there's runoff on the sidewalk, but it's just somehow.
There's some punch lists related to the sidewalk
Okay.
that they need to address. But it was always, the planning board approved it as an asphalt, you know, rural path. It was not, you know, approved as a concrete sidewalk, and, you know, the intent was to have it meander along the road, so it's, you know, I can't blame them if.
Yeah, no, that part I know, but there's one section where it's not connected.
Yeah, they're not completely done.
Okay.
There's still some things that they have to do.
Yeah, okay. Did anybody else have any other questions? Okay.
Road resurfacing?
Oh, yeah,
That was
let's
the
go for it.
only other one. Just because, you know, I know in the past, there's been some questions or comments about the road selected. So John and Rich put together this plan for 2024. At least since I've been here, what we've been trying to do is allocate about $500,000 a year towards road improvements. And you know, why certain roads, why some of these like smaller ones, you might think, oh, there's a bigger road that needs a lot more work. Those are the roads that tend to make for prime targets for grant applications from the state. So, you know, that's why the more local roads are on our task list, and then the bigger roads are the ones that go for the local aid, the municipal aid grants, the DOT. John, do you have any, or does anybody have questions for John first on these roads, or is that fine?
You know, we did go out and evaluate the roads again, and just, you know, not every single road in town, we have a list that we know is rated low, and we just went out to look at those roads again to make sure things didn't shift, or one road deteriorated faster than the other, and we needed to adjust the road. So we did go out and just kind of validate the numbers again. And so again, we're focusing on, doing roads with the lowest rating and as being the priority roads.
Okay. I'm trying to find the, was that sent separate? I know I looked at it. You have a list?
It's labeled as 4B.
Oh, that's it, okay, thank you.
4B2.
Yeah, I know, when I saw it, I didn't have any questions. Well, actually, the only one that came up was, we forever have Britton Road on this list. So we are gonna repave it?
Yeah, I didn't understand this. Is there a list here? Because I think this is just a CRI rating, and we're doing every road on this list? I mean, no, so what are we doing?
I think there's 4 roads, right? 4.
Yeah, no, there was a memo that we did that you should have.
No.
On groupings, I apologize.
No, we
don't-
were only proposing 6 roads for the local, and then we have Mount Vernon and River Road. We did receive a DOT grant for those roads. We received a DOT grant, but you're looking at
That was the full, I apologize, I think,
Yeah,
I thought it was the second
we don't
page.
have the list of roads or the amount.
Now you can read it.
Yeah, yeah. Would it be the first 6 roads on the local roads list? Is that?
yeah, we have,
John, you,
yeah, I
did
can
you have
say,
pull- if you could pull.
Stafford, Woodmont, Oak Hill, Southward, Ferndale, and Oxford was Exford was the 6 roads that were identified. You know, Britain, we pushed off again, just the DPW did some repairs. Last year, they can do some minor repairs again, just to keep that. You know, Britain Road is just a very expensive road to who knows when the landfill's gonna be, done, but nevertheless, it was, just hesitant about recommending it. It's a discussion item for the committee. And then I think Gates, we were proposing to do Gates with other roads in that neighborhood.
What do you mean, it's part of a grant, when you say with other roads?
Excuse me?
What do you mean with other roads in the neighborhood? At another point when you do that?
No, they just, tried to group roads when you have, the contractor, to have them remobilize just to do one road, usually if you can get them lumped into a neighborhood, sometimes we
Okay.
do that. We try to make it, because just to, you get a complaint right away, you do one road in a neighborhood, why didn't you do mine? And then always complain, so we try, even though the numbers aren't matching perfectly sometimes, we do try to group roads so that, we're hitting a neighborhood so that,
Okay.
people just, they appreciate that.
Okay. Any questions?
So the total dollar amount was $400,000 was what was being asked, which was for those 6 roads plus, the DOT grant typically doesn't cover 100% of the road, it usually covers 80% plus, so we were proposing needed a 45,000 as just supplement on the grants for those roads.
Yeah, so I live on Gates, and, it's high on the list there, and it's not being paved, and I guess so it connects to Mitchell, which makes a loop, so Gates and Mitchell, and then to Garden. That area was micropaved in 2010.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest areas in town that has not been touched. Before that, there were neighbors that lived there in the 70s, and they say it has never been fully paved. I don't know if that's true, I didn't live in the town, but it's very possible.
Very possible.
And it's one of the only areas that's been micropaved. driving on Stafford, driving on Gates, I mean, I would just challenge anyone to take a look at those two roads and say that they're in any way comparable. Another.
It's hard, these numbers are very close, you know, these numbers are very close, and I have the same person do it, you know, just so that they're rating it. You have to have the same person doing it all the time so that they're, you know, because it is very subjective. You know, we could, there's more sophisticated ways of doing this. We can get a service in that actually does a video of the road, and by, you know, the computer actually calculates it based on it. And so we're doing it based on a visual inspection, percentage of certain cracks, and so, you know, ours is a quick and dirty, you know, it only takes a day to go through the whole town and just kind of, you know, identify that. But, so they are subjective, you know, there's no question about it. You know, we can spend more to try to rank the roads, but we did that a few years ago. And maybe in the next year or two, we may want to do that again, just to give another fresh look at all the roads again.
No, I have friends on Stafford, so it's, you know, no, but if you just simply look at Stafford and you look at this, you know, forget my road, forget Gates, go to Mitchell, it is not, it's not close. And Club Road, it is really in bad shape. And Valley, and we did fill in a giant hole on Club Road. And Valley View is half with Long Hill, and, you know, I don't know, I wish we would take some time and maybe get some more feedback on this list, because this does not seem accurate to me, to say the least.
I think
Feedback, I'm sorry, John,
Well,
what kind of feedback are
yeah.
we looking at? Because this is we're looking at it from a technical, you know, we've got asphalt
But it's
grading.
not technical. If you look at these age roads and you look at the CRI numbers that were from, you know, previous years, now it seems like, you know, like things have been tossed up in the air. And I could, you know, bring those spreadsheets in and show you that this is a scrambled, in my opinion, this is a scrambled eggs kind of situation with the roads. You know, you know, throughout Gates Avenue, because I live on that road, and I don't want to, you know, be biased to that. I'll just say, all the way over the other section of town, you know, where Marty lives, Club Road. And, I mean, that road is, it's just, I'm not proud of the way that road looks to live in this township. Like, I'm just not proud of it. And you compare it to Stafford.
So you're talking about a 6-point difference in the rating, is what you're saying, is inaccurate. Stafford, you know, the review here has it as a 57, and Club is at a 63.
I'm just saying, look at the list, Mr. Shoddy.
No, I'm looking at the list, so that's what I'm
Right,
asking.
so
I'm looking
Gates,
at the list.
Gates is being skipped. Gates and Mitchell are connected. They were micro-paved at the exact same time. The last time they were paved completely, according to the neighbors in that area, I can't validate this, but it's possible, we've been told it's possible, was the 70s. Fully paved in the 70s, micro-paved in 2010. The road is degraded to the point where there's been, you know, holes at stormwater entry, you know, collection points, the basins. It's in bad shape. And you know, if you go to Club Road, it looks like there are rubber snakes all over that road because of its condition. I just think that this maybe needs some more feedback, and I'm wondering how I can best be productive in doing that, and what more information we can have, because I'm saying subjectively, it's going to be subjective, but I would just say visually, or living on these roads, I can't agree with the way that they've been ranked.
So it sounds like to me, because I'm looking and we've got the neighborhood of Stafford, Woodmont, you know, it's one neighborhood, so what you're grouping for this year versus, I mean, if I just look at Gates and then Mitchell's right over there, right? Mitchell's right. So it sounds like potentially those might be on the slate next year. I mean, if we're looking at things by
Yeah,
neighborhood.
I think those are gonna be on the slate next year. You know, and again, another reason why I know where all you live, and so I don't wanna rank your road, so I haven't got my engineers do it. You know, so they do that, and then they take this list, I give it to Rich Young, and Rich, you validate this, does this road make sense to you, and that's how the process goes. So, you know, we can certainly have, you know, look at it closer, but that's how
I'm not suggesting that there isn't room for improvement. I'm just, when we say we need more feedback, what's that mean? Is it feedback from you? Is it feedback from the residents? Because everybody's gonna have their own personal feelings about it.
Well, everyone's gonna advocate for their.
Correct, so that's when we say
You know,
feedback,
it's always,
just tell me.
your road is always the worst.
Right, so that's why I was like, when you say feedback, I just,
You need a little
what
more
does that
rigor,
mean,
right? You need rigor in terms of.
You know, at least in every town I've been in, I've always pushed for a very numerical, you know, very fact-based, just here, you've got longitudinal cracks, transverse cracks, drainage, all these different things that come into a rating, and there's a rating, right? So, you know, every year, because we're not gonna reevaluate all the roads in town every year, so what I asked John last year, John and Rich, was, okay, take the top 25 or whatever it is, 10, 15, and reevaluate those, because you're not gonna have one that's all the way down at the bottom, all of a sudden jump at the top. If it is, you know, DPW is gonna raise that to our attention, but you're gonna move around within that top 10 every so often, and they just keep sliding up. So it's never gonna be perfect. This isn't a science, it's not perfection. You're always gonna have, you know, disagreement about a road or two, but as long as we're trying to be consistent and transparent in it, I think that's the best you can do. At every town you go to, there's always gonna be arguments and disagreements about which roads get paved. What I suggest is just have a system, stick to that system, and don't, and try to be consistent. Now, you have a budget, you have certain rationale that, you know, John explained. Sometimes a road is longer or shorter, and you're not gonna be able to fit that in within your budget. So, you know, I'm fine moving this, why it's here for your review, your discussion.
What is our budget for road paving this
So
year?
we put in, I try to put in 500 every year for at least what makes sense here in Chatham, also based on last year with what we could afford with the capital improvement fund. 500,000, that includes for whatever the match is on the DOT, plus local roads. And throughout the year, I like to leave a little bit of a cushion, because there's other things that come up during the year that you need to tend to, whether it's a curbing issue or a pop, some damage. So you want to have some money available for that. So we put in 500 based off of, John's estimate here. What was it, John? I'm sorry, it was almost 400 and change.
Yeah,
Is that right?
just about 400.
400 and change for the DOT roads and our local roads.
Okay,
But,
So we could change it.
but we're $100,000 under the target. I had shown a way in the budget, on our last presentation, I've shown a way to free a $303,000 additional dollars without, affecting the taxpayer. We could potentially use that here. If we're gonna say
What,
that,
3,000, I'm sorry?
I can go through those again, if you weren't listening in the last meeting when I presented those, there was 303,000 that I had identified was easily available to.
It's all a shell game. Like, you're just playing shell games, moving money from one area to the other.
Yeah, that's right, that's exactly what we're doing, we're taking it
Okay, so it's
into
not actually
areas.
finding money, it's just shell games. You're just moving money around, and the money that is needed is still needed.
If that's your opinion of finance.
No, that's my fact. You don't do
Okay.
municipal finance.
If we're gonna
committee,
say
no,
that,
it's-
if we're gonna say that objectively, that we're doing this objectively, the first and second roads that we're ranking as worse objectively, and that have been on the list for years, objectively, are not being attended to. And if you wanna say that, well, the road is too long in one case, and if you wanna say that, well, it's connected to another road that is, should be done at the same time, well, the problem with that is, if you look at our past CRI indexes and our past rankings, those roads were right next to each other. And in fact, last year when we talked about this, we did say, there were comments made that, well, those will be the roads for next year. And that's not being carried through. So this is not an objective system, is my concern. And of course, it can never be completely objective. And we have to be reasonable, and there has to be a way of moving forward in a rubric. But we cannot say, because it's disingenuous to say, that this is in some way scientific,
Nobody said
fully
that.
objective,
Nobody said that.
or that there's a system.
There is a system.
No, there's a system that gets constantly tweaked and moved and nudged and whatever,
No, the
and that's
system
fine.
is the same system as
And what
every-
I'm saying is that, if, take a look at Club Road, take a look at Valley View. I've said that these, of course, these things are subjective and people are gonna look, but I look at those roads, I don't live in those neighborhoods, certainly have friends in those areas. I don't see those roads as being in the kind of conditions that these other roads are. Or if I look at Stafford, my friends on Stafford, I don't see Stafford Road as being in the same condition as some of these other roads. And I'm saying, we need some other feedback. That's what I'm saying.
But what is the feedback? That's what I keep asking. I'm not arguing. You want to change the list, that's your decision. What is the feedback you want? Because you keep giving these like sort of amorphous, ambiguous things. Like, we need more feedback. From who? You're right here.
Right.
So who do you need more feedback from? You got feedback from your engineer, your public works director, your administrator, finance. What is your feedback? Who do you need more feedback from? You wanna take a poll every time we're gonna pave roads? So what is the feedback you need? What criteria, what feedback do you need, Committeeman Lewis? If you have an objection to the list, then tell us what list you prefer. Let's move on. We go through this every year.
Mr. Shahadi, to be fair to this committee, you didn't send us the document that actually told us what roads are being paved. What we received was a large list of possible roads, and it added up to an amount it would far exceed the budget. We've never received the actual document. We would say, you never gave us a list. This isn't like, oh, we've had a list of roads. These are what's being paved.
Okay,
Okay,
he
no,
just
I'm
gave
gonna
you a
call
list
it.
of the
I
roads.
had it.
Right, so this just
This is
came
where
to
we're
us,
not,
and
we're
you're
not
getting
adding
feedback
value at
now.
all to the process at all, that we're done. Everybody's vetted okay, so I haven't heard anything that in my mind would change anything. We have input from all directions, and I understand where you're coming from. I'm looking at two roads. Britton Road is its own unique situation, and then we have Gates, and then there's a neighborhood. So I would ask that next year, the Gates-Mitchell neighborhood be seriously considered, but otherwise, let's just move forward. That's it. We've got all the input we need. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor, just so there's no confusion, can I have John just read off the roads again that we're talking about?
Sure.
Sorry, I closed that.
I think it was Stafford.
Stafford, Woodmont, Ferndale.
Oak Hill, Southward, and
and
Wexford.
The DOT grant was Mount Vernon, River Road, we were doing that this year. Then Stanford, Woodmont, Oak Hill, Southward, Ferndale, and Wexford.
But you also said that the DOT roads, they don't cover 100%, and that we're
Correct.
always typically responsible for.
$45,000 allocated towards that road and the total recommended budget was $398,000. So, if the committee wanted to increase the road to add another 100,000, we could certainly make that recommendation on the roads.
There's one other thing I think we can all agree on, which is that Fairmont Avenue, which is a county road, the county portion is badly in need of being paved. And, that's a county thing, right?
So I
But-
do have follow-up on that.
Go ahead.
You're talking about so I heard from a resident, and I don't feel it's appropriate to share his name, but followed up with the county, and they are gonna come in, they have a contractor lined up to come in to fix the 400 and 500 section of Fairmount. And I have gotten a couple of complaints on that, so, but I haven't gotten any complaints on any other road, and Fairmount definitely needs it. But as far as I know, it's that 400, 500 section, and they said they're gonna mill and pave, which I was surprised. Okay, thank you.
May I ask just one question? So, do you and Rich at all cross-reference either the utility companies or anyone else who maybe have anticipated road cuts?
Every year,
Okay.
we request it, they're not always accurate.
Yeah, I understand that part, but at least we're
Yeah.
referencing that.
We do that diligent every year, we reach out to utility companies, and it seems like right after we ask them
They
for
come
this,
and-
they seem to change it
Yeah,
midstream
right.
a lot of
Cut it
times.
up.
But we do ask them all constantly, and they ask us, and we do communicate with the utility companies.
John, there's another town that claims that they don't let, they repave, and then they don't let their utilities or whatever touch those roads for 5 years or something of that sort. Is that something that is?
We have that now in Chatham Township.
Okay.
We have a 5-year moratorium.
Okay.
And we do allow utilities to open up for emergencies.
Okay,
If
that's
there's
what-
an emergency, but they also have to pay a surcharge
Right.
on the application fee for opening it up within the time.
Thanks for that clarity. Okay.
I don't recall, just so I know, the future NJDOT, sorry, just read that category. Okay,
Yeah, we've had the utility company want to open a road after we pave it, a year ever,
Yeah.
and then we've made them repave the entire road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Great, do we have anything else for John?
I mean, I don't wanna belabor the request, or at least is the concern that Gates and Mitchell are not on the list, is that it?
They're gonna be considered for next year.
Okay, because I just, certainly can add them. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, how much was the
Well-
price? Gates was 52.
Gates was, in terms of.
Pull this up, I can't see this.
Again, I would recommend going to Mitchell because you wanna do the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So Gates and Mitchell, Gates is 52 and you have Mitchell as 44. So that's the other 100.
Can we do that? Budget was 5, we spent 4.
Where was the 45,000?
That was for the DOT.
That was the DOT.
The DOT match, so that's part of that 400.
That
so
brought
That's
us up to
included in the 100?
398.
Oh, okay.
Brought us to 398, so.
Okay.
Wait, so that's
And
included?
frankly, Garden Street is a very small road, we can look at, what's gonna, for Gardner and Cotton Road, we can just cross that out to see what it is, to see if we can squeeze those in. I'll work on that estimate.
Okay, is that fine?
Because I think if we just
I-
do Mitchell and Gates.
Yeah, definitely
they're
appreciate
gonna complain, we're gonna get those complaints.
Yeah, of
So
course.
Look at the condition of those roads.
Okay.
Okay.
Because
Thank
on the end
you.
of Gardner, there is a drainage issue that the resident complains about,
Yes.
that the road is too flat, and we can try and see if we can correct that, but,
That
Emo.
would be good. Yeah.
I know, Frankie.
yeah.
Emu.
Yep.
Oh, no wonder why I haven't heard anything. Okay. Okay,
That's it.
wonderful. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Don.
Thanks, John.
Have a good night. Okay, what's up?
Back to, admin, which is really, discussion action items, the goals and priorities, and then a follow-up on any resolutions, if so desired, to take a position on Oprah and the affordable housing legislation.
So do we, you know what, let's just make sure we get clear construction, so there were no other resolutions.
There's a resolution under tax assessor, but we can, discuss that at the
For the next session.
we can discuss that in exec.
Okay, let's hold off on that one. Okay, so did anybody have any other questions that they, didn't get answers to so far, from the other categories before we dip into the administration?
Well, the only question that I have is more general. It's just that, recreation's been lumped off here, and I do understand we've lost our recreation director. But what is I mean, it's still in our ordinance, it's still part of the town. What is the plan going forward as a topic, subject area for workshops, for discussions, and for reports?
Well, pool reports, will be included under administration.
Okay, so any of that would be captured under administration though?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, why don't we do Oprah and affordable housing legislation first? And I think affordable housing legislation, well, no, we'll still start with Oprah. Are we, how are we run on time? We're good. Okay, so we had a discussion that, we're considering asking our legislators to give close consideration to the rewrite of the Oprah legislation that they were considering. And that's what this discussion is about, is to get input. And Cafoni had given us some information at the last session. I don't know if you wanted to touch base on that again. But otherwise, we all had an opportunity to kind of research and evaluate and give consideration. So I guess I would open it up for discussion. Ms. Cafoni, did you wanna?
No, I think I think the purpose of this is to find out if the committee wants to have a resolution in support, in opposition, requesting changes, whatever that may be.
Yeah. I mean, my comment back was, I would support, a change, I would support legislation, but that I think that it has to look, the state legislature has to look at it more closely, to make sure that, that we support transparency. So I think there can be some improvements from what I read. And it was just some subtleties, and Mr. Lois had brought a couple of them up, you know, the fact that you wouldn't be able to request emails. I think that's something that they can revisit. The whole discovery piece, I didn't quite understand, didn't make sense to me, why that would be included in the front of the notes are. But did anybody else have any in terms of specifics that we would ask for them to give reconsideration for? Or consideration?
The exclusion of text messages. Is it, I mean, it's just, that doesn't seem to be like a good incentive to just exclude
Mm-hmm.
text messages. Another one is clear definitions of what is harassment. And I think the harassment laws that we see, especially like in Europe, or the speech laws that we see, it's definitely in Canada, those type of laws are always start as harassment. You know, oh, you're harassing, you're doing something harassing. Well, that's a standard that we've never had. I mean, I have to be willing to be persistent, I have to be willing to be labeled harassing. I mean, that's a blurred line that even using the word harassment, I would have to say needs to be fleshed out or dropped.
Anybody else have any other particular things we would, or does anybody think it's fine the way it is? It's legitimate also. I mean, part of this is, if we, well, we don't have to make a statement to the state legislators either.
I mean, it could be just individuals with their opinions to the legislators, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a full resolution, but if there's consensus on something meaningful.
Yeah, I'm not sensing a lot of passion from the group. Is that just because everybody's in support of the legislation as is, or it's just, I'm just wondering.
I'm not. I mean, I would have to say it's intent, right? I mean, I'm not in favor of using public employees for commercial purposes to data mine. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for people to be able to get information for bad, you know, for any kind of terrible reason, right? Whether it's stalking type of things, but you know, in our society, we're going to have to risk abuse of the system and for openness. And I would be more in favor of openness, transparency. And I've seen, just because what I've seen from government, I mean, even with things as open as they look, it's very hard to figure out what is actually going on under the surface. And so I think that it could be narrowed to the point where it only applied to the intent of someone who's making, like all the Oprah changes, maybe only to someone who's made more than 20 Oprah requests in a year. I mean, that would be a standard I would start with. Because somebody who wants 10 documents from a town, whatever they may be, that could be a resident. You know, somebody who's going repeatedly around the state, maybe they could have a database where they collect the names of, you know, people that are making Oprah requests, and if you're on this list, then you get the extra scrutiny. But the average person who has a problem to run into this stumbling block, we have this problem right in our own, you know, for Oprah requests for construction documents, right? For construction documents, you want to go in there, even for your own house, even just to look at your file, you have to do an Oprah request. It's already restrictive, and then to make it further restrictive, I think is a problem.
So, I'm curious, Mr. LeConte, in terms of the specific things that were raised that are kind of questionable, the email, text messages, emails, text being eliminated, and we're saying, you know, we want that reconsidered, harassment.
That's what I have, the request emails, the exclusion of text messages, and clearer definitions of harassment. And what I have written, just to maybe point us in the right direction, is a resolution supporting legislation but requesting review and further consideration of the elimination of emails, the exclusion of text messages, and providing clearer definitions of harassment. That's what I have down.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, I would support the clearer definition of harassment, just so that way, you know, there should be an objective standard. It shouldn't be left to one person's interpretation.
And what about the emails and text messages?
I've never received an Oprah request for text messages, so that's sort of a moot point, and I've always advised people to be careful what you put in a text because they are currently subject to Oprah. I have no problem with that being still subject to Oprah. You know, my support for the legislation has more to do with wanting to protect people's reasonable expectation of privacy. While I'm very much in favor of transparency, transparency shouldn't be at the cost of citizens' privacy. Transparency should be about finding out what government's doing, not about what your neighbor is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm in favor of the legislation.
Okay. I'm kind of torn on this one because I'm not seeing a lot of passion, so I'm thinking maybe Mr. Lewis and I just write our letters with Mr. Carr, and as opposed to having a full committee resolution.
Well, I'm in favor of transparency. I just don't know how some of the stuff is administered. So, for example, in the case of text messages, how do you parcel out business related versus anything non-business related? And how do you even cost effectively do that?
Well, and I'll jump in here because, I think that's part of it, right? And I think, you know, I can appreciate the concern for residents' privacy. I can appreciate the need for transparency. And I look at it maybe in a slightly different angle, and that is from the business side of a municipality and satisfying these requests and balancing the resources necessary to satisfy the requests and resources that don't just mean money, I mean time, effort by multiple people, not just Greg. And you know, you take things like text messages. So how would we get those? Well, Greg probably can't do that if someone's requesting
Yeah,
it.
absolutely can't.
And so we need an IT person to come and do that? Like, how does, you have to think practically, and a lot of the times, even just look at Greg's report, don't quote me on the numbers, but I thought it was very telling. In 3 months, he's at almost 300 Oprah requests. I mean, that just gives you an example of the reality, the business side of Oprah, and what it is costing municipalities and the efforts that have to go through. And some of that is why some of this legislation is there. And you know, text messages are, I do not claim to be an IT person, but text messages are an example. It's great to say text messages should be included, but how do we do that? How? If a requester said, I would like all text messages of the township committee members regarding this subject, how are we doing that?
That's my point.
It's all voluntary.
So my hesitancy here is not so much, I'm 100% behind the concept of it all. I just don't know. I don't know how the legislation gets drafted, to be honest, and how it's administered. So unless the day comes when every elected official down to the municipality gets a separate phone, a government phone, you cannot do it cost effectively. And even if you have a government issued phone, you can't really do it anyway.
Well,
At the municipal level, at the county level, I would imagine at the state and federal certainly. But
I just want to point out, though, I mean, we're looking at it from our lens here at local government, right? This affects every state
Right.
employee as
That's
well,
correct.
right?
Right.
So there's countless agencies, departments, offices that are affected by that do have government text, have government cell phones. They are being run through the state, the OIT. Ours, we don't issue you cell phones. So if you get an Oprah request, it's, hey, committeeman, deputy mayor, we need your text messages. You gotta screenshot them, send them in, and that's it. It's your honesty at that point. When I was an elected official, or even as an administrator, I've had that requested. If I don't do the right thing, then potentially if that leads to litigation, that request leads to litigation more, and now I have not provided everything that I should provide. Now it's like, wait a minute, you said you provided everything, you didn't, so now I lied. So, it's your honesty, but I think it's important to also realize that, as Tana just said, Ms. Cafoni said, one resident was talking about how, this is selfish interest, so, we're not looking at it from what's in the best interest of the resident. I would challenge that because of the fact that the clerk's time, my time, our money, the attorney has to review these things. That is taxpayer money that is now being wasted on either frivolous or an abundance of just Oprah requests that really are, and it's taking away from work that needs to be done, or legitimate residents who do want to submit an Oprah request, and now they're in the queue, and we're dealing with all these other things. So, you know, it's a trade-off, but right now, you know, it was temporarily withdrawn, so I think also wait, they've heard the feedback, let's see what the next iteration looks like, and then maybe offer some feedback based off of that.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is, I'm advocacy for transparency, but I understand the unintended consequences that was clearly materialized. So I respect the notion of considering and implementing some guardrails, right? Good faith guardrails. But I think, like, for me, I think I feel like I have the understanding holistic of this matter as a fourth grader when I really need to be like a PhD, have a PhD level understanding, really opine intelligently on how. I mean, I'm fine with the resolution, but I think the resolution, you know, if it specifies those 3 points, I think conceptually I'm in agreement with it. But I'm certainly not a subject matter expert on it. I'd love to be if I had the time.
I think it's the theory versus practice.
It's incredibly complicated matter.
Well, to that point, I mean, look, this isn't the first time Oprah's been brought up, right? I mean, like any ordinance or resolution you pass, they constantly evolve. You know, we learn technology, text messages weren't envisioned in the, you know, the original things, emails. I remember, you know, back before government officials, when I got elected, we didn't have township email accounts. So it was also, you know, your AOL or Yahoo account, and how do you deal with that? So, you know, these evolve. There's never gonna be a perfect answer, and I think that's the important thing to remember with something like this is you gotta sometimes let things play out to see how you're gonna fine tune them also. It's not the perfect answer. But there are attorneys, and some of the attorneys that have been referenced by residents in a support or opposition, and the proponents, they're making their living off of Oprah as well. So, you know, to say that they're just these benevolent, you know, public advocates, that's crap. They're making a living being those people who are the thorn in government side or elected official side to make money off of these as well. So, you know, there's no saint in any of this.
Okay, so I think what, based on what I'm hearing and not hearing, why don't we just pursue it individually for now? And then we'll just keep an eye on stuff and decide at some point if we want to pull the trigger in terms of putting our opinion out there to weigh in.
Okay.
Okay?
Before you go,
Yeah.
if sending something in as an individual,
Sorry, I think you can send it as a committee member, but
That's my
you're not
question.
representing the committee.
right, okay,
You can
that's,
certainly say I'm a committee member,
Yes.
and yes.
that's my question, thank you.
Yeah.
Read me like a cheap novel.
And for what it's worth, whatever your opinions on the subject may be, you'll probably get a lot further with assembly people and state senators as individuals rather than doing a resolution that no one other than the 5, 6, 8 of us will actually read.
Yes, thank you, which I've done that too. So, okay, so moving on to the affordable housing legislation, which I think we are all in agreement that we would like to see some amendments there. And I think you had said that Leslie Linden was going to
Yes,
provide some more detail relative to where we are,
yes,
Chatham Township, how we're impacted.
yes, for the 20,
Oh, no, sorry, the next meeting, yeah, I'm sorry, we're still April 9th, the April 23rd.
April 23rd,
The
yeah.
April 23rd meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
and she'll be here for that meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know if you wanna wait to hear that before you decide, it's up to you.
April 23rd.
April 23rd, Leslie will be here,
Yeah.
she'll provide her memo, and she'll be here to answer questions and review it, yeah. And she is working with the township planner to put that together.
Okay. I mean, the feedback I had sent in was, you know, again, requesting an amendment and consideration for things like, you know, environmental constraints. What is my list? But that's, and I don't know what else was sent in related to that, but that was kind of the idea, was that we were gonna have a resolution and, you know, asking the our legislators, and of course, we could reach out individually as well, to reconsider the affordable housing, or to implement some amendments, and then provide some specifics. Did you have a list of specifics you received?
The
I'm just
only, I mean, I
curious.
got, I would say two sort of general comments, feedback on it, but one, specific, and that was yours, with very like specific points.
Okay,
And I forwarded that to Tiana,
okay.
this afternoon.
All right, well, it's legislation, so we can wait till the April discussion. Is anybody averse to that idea?
Mayor, I had sent you, 2 articles of towns near us that had rebuked it, and if you, or somebody would share that with the wider committee, because I can't email the whole committee with,
If you wanna send it
just
to me,
the
I'll forward it.
articles. Yeah, if that would be appropriate, okay.
Sorry, I'm just confused what you're talking about with Oprah, or, because I know you sent Oprah.
Affordable housing legislation, I had sent you just two articles of, local town. One was in Bergen County in Ridgewood, and the other one was, I believe, the mayor of, Madison.
Madison, I know
Yeah,
Madison,
yeah,
she did.
just
Okay.
those 2 rebukes of, specifically picking apart the affordable housing at this point.
Yeah,
If you can send that to me and see, then we can get it to the whole committee.
Sure, thank you.
thank you. Okay. Goals and priorities. I just wanted to start out, so the idea of the goals and priorities is that there's a lot of stuff that's gotta get done, and a lot of it is, it's big and it takes a long time, and the other reality is our administrative staff have a lot of things they've gotta get done. So this a little bit provides, it's a map for us, for the community to provide input, and for our administration to know what their priorities are, what they need to get done. So that was kind of the impetus behind this. And I appreciate everything that everybody sent in, because it was really great. There was a lot of great information in there. I think we're very much aligned on a lot of things.
Seemed like there was a lot of alignment on it.
Yeah. Now, I would ask the general category of capital planning, which was a big one, we know we're gonna cover next month. So I would say let's push that whole thing off to next month, so anything that fell under that category. I think a lot of us had talked about event planning. I know I think a couple of us had communications, improving communications. What I would say for capital planning, even though we're gonna drill down more so, there was a lot of discussion about more thoughtful, strategic planning process in terms of, we had talked about, for example, getting a kind of understanding our fields, the useful life, and which I know our rec director wasn't able to get to us, but I think so we have a sense of, we can map out, Shunpike has 5 more years of useful life, we were gonna anticipate it's gonna be 2 million that we've gotta spend in 5 years, because that's when Shunpike's gonna, some section of Shunpike. So a more thoughtful plan in that sense, that's mapped out. But we do have some big items in there which we all agree on. So this building being one of them, the police station being one of them. So in terms of having a planning process, we will go into that next time, but I think the process was something also that came up, not just the specifics. Affordable housing, we're all, have input on that. Let's see. Is there any other major category? I'm thinking, trying to parse these into categories. Financial planning, which goes hand in hand with a lot of this. Mr. Lowe's categorized one section as quality of life, which we've hit on a few things, but and that's what I'm wondering, is if we could take this information and break it into categories, because, we're in no rush here, but consolidate some of this information. So when I talked about events, to me, that's a quality of life item. Public safety was another category that came up, which includes some of the capital planning for the police.
If you like my categories, you can say it. You can just say, you know, Mr. Lois used categories for every year, they were the same. I'm just saying, we could do it.
I did
Or
not
not.
actually, I didn't notice it until now,
I
so
know. I
I
sneak
can't
up on
commit to
people.
that just yet.
All of a sudden, you're like, I agree with that guy, yeah.
Well, we're 2 for 2 this evening, Oprah also.
Mhm.
Okay, so rather than drill down on the detail, does anybody have any general comments or input, anything that they saw in here and they were like, oh wow, I really like that, I really hate that?
Mayor,
Yes.
might I suggest maybe referring this to one of the subcommittees, either maybe the admin subcommittee or whatever, to go through this together and, you know, because this is gonna be your list, your goals, your priorities, so that way, they can all be reviewed. I'll work with, you know, whatever subcommittee that is, but I certainly don't want to pretend to either interpret or misunderstand and miscategorize, or, you know, I think it would be great if
That's
there was a
fine.
bit more involvement from the governing body on that.
Okay. That's fine, so we'll send it down to the administrative subcommittee to kind of piece this together, pull everything together. Great, and if there's any specific input, then we can wrap that up for now. But the idea is to put together these goals to get input from the community and then fine tune it, and then this is a guiding document. So that it'll help us to move forward in terms of what our priorities are and where we wanna spend our money.
I think that another aspect, Mayor, is there's the things that we will spend the money on, but then there's also the volunteer aspect, like if someone wants to like adopt a project to, you know, plant flowers or bushes around the colony tennis courts, or paint the gazebo, or so, you know, maybe there's an aspect of the community adopting a project as well, rather than everything having a cost associated with it. So maybe there's a category people can volunteer to do I mean, no one's gonna volunteer to repave something or do something large, but just, you know, more beautification kind of, you know, the quality of life, like, you know, fix a trail or do something, you know, pick up sticks, something like that.
I think the events are
thinking.
also a great opportunity for
For
volunteers, because
volunteers, right.
that takes a lot of, you know, certainly the staff, we can facilitate the requisitioning, the contacting vendors, space, things like that, but the time, the promotions, the getting out to the community, the different businesses, spreading the word, you know, those are all things that, you know, successful events are really from the ground up. You know, what I've seen also, at least here in the last year or so when we've tried to have rec events, is we're feeding them down, you know, depending on the day, who's involved, what's the nature of the event. Some people don't want to participate, and then it turns into a flop. So if it's coming from the community, what they want to see, how the scale of it, where they want it, the time, you know, that's great. You tell us, and we'll help execute. But I think those are a great opportunity for community involvement and volunteers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. And like you said, when you have members of the community who are doing it, then they engage others to participate, so.
Yeah, it was hard to get people excited when it's, you know, there are ideas we're trying to come up with, and pick a day for it and get them going. I mean, the winter festival's been great, but other things have been hard to get going.
Yeah. Committeewoman Rowland, I was trying to think in my head how what you were talking about is structured, because there are groups that are doing a lot of that, but it's very disparate, and I don't think we don't necessarily have a punch list of things.
Right, and it's always, you know, I think it's always the same group of people.
Yeah,
There's 11,000 people in the town, and I would, you know, happily take a couple of hours and go plant something around town, you know, plant some flowers or something like that, or paint
It's
something.
usually the scouts and the environmental commission
Right, it's
and
usually the
open
same-
space, it's the same folks.
I was just gonna say, I've seen a
Drinking
lot
from the
of,
same-
pretty significant projects done by Eagle Scouts too, and other things.
Yeah,
Yes,
no, they
yes.
do a great job.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, those are great projects that, you know, serve multiple
And
purposes.
our Gold
Right.
Award,
Right,
Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts, Gold Awards, great.
Mhm.
But even just putting it out, like I know, some pools, like the pool memberships, you say, hey, there's cleanup day on Saturday or something. And we do that with the environmental commission, but there could be a painting day or a, you know, something like that.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
But,
How that fits in.
so in every example that I've had today, or I've heard, and the ones that are written here and shared on multiple pages, which means from multiple committee members, what I've seen, I can agree more with this, you're gonna have a agreement ad nauseum here. You know, something like a holiday event, ground up, we have the fire departments that do, you know, they sell Christmas trees, right, and they have a fire pit. So maybe, you know, if we're gonna hire carolers to sing, maybe we send it to their event, right? To juice their event, and then the thing that this township could do, and it kind of correlates with communication, is, hey, we'll put your event on our calendar. We'll promote your event. You know, so the township acts more as a conduit, grease the wheels, and maybe we can have an application process for local organizations. So for instance, the beautification, Town and Country Garden Club, you know, they do that, and they did a lot of our signs, thankfully, or the Historical Society, they put on many different events, mostly history related, of course. And then we have, you know, the Art League of the Chathams. I'm sure that they would be willing to do something artistically related, right? But how do we get them, how do we incentivize them? Maybe there's some sort of, I don't wanna say grants, but there's a grant-like application, and super simple, right? Simple as our block party kind of application, where we just say, and we can do it through our liaisons, we just say, look, you have an organization, you want the township's support, what would you like from us? These are the type of things that we've done in the past for community events. So this way, it's coming ground up, but connecting with the township gets you the communication, gets you an official announcement, it gets you maybe something more straightforward from like Mr. LeConte, like if it requires permits or raffling or whatever. I mean, our staff is great, but people don't always have that exact, you know, line. So I think if there was some sort of like grant, and then the kicker, the incentive is, hey, we're gonna throw our carolers, or the budget that we had for that. And the budgets that I saw for the recreation events were always like well managed. I'll just say that, well managed, right? I think we got a lot of bang for the buck, but if we had more people use them, that's even more bang for the buck, you know? And I think we could get that from the ground up. So, and that's, to me, that's a small government approach, and I love it. I love it. I think it's great. I don't know if that works.
Great. Okay, I think we have our next steps for that. Let's see, we have everything, okay, so we have another hearing of citizens. And the same rules apply, so I will open the hearing of citizens.
I'm sorry, Mayor, but we did have a late email about a finance discussion that we needed to have about debt that was related to that. There was like a very late email.
We did get a very late email. Sorry. Do we have a hand raised?
Yes, we do.
All right, we'll come back to it after this public, finance. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Carr?
Hi again, this is Stuart Carr, 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township, once again on the Oprah item. Again, sorry to be direct, but I am highly disappointed in the committee members for not digging in, but I give you a little bit of slack because you got 95 other things on your desk, and that's fine. I am very highly disappointed in the council who is not given any of the other sides of this particular issue. This is a big-time, clear attempt to lower transparency. And it's unfortunate that the council hasn't done it, or the administrator hasn't given any other sides. Again, the administrator talked about the idea of ambulance chasers chasing around, and it's not Ely Mocenary, et cetera, et cetera. That's all fine. But I guess I challenge the administrator to say, okay, of these Oprah chasings, what is actually frivolous, and how are towns adversely impacted on balance, okay? And again, I'd suggest bringing somebody in there to actually explain to you what's going on with the Oprah issue and how big a deal it actually is. Because the council we have right now just hasn't done that, frankly, and that's really, really disappointing. I sent you that 4-hour tape. I'd suggest or implore you to listen to it, or at least listen to portions of it, the ones that I highlighted, and really wake up and see what the heck this thing looks like. because that guy down in New Jersey Press Association, Mr. Cafferty, said this bill eviscerates Oprah. That person knows what he's talking about. The people in this room, again, are like the council said, you've been either misinformed or ill-informed or intentionally misled. And again, you guys have other things to do. But the professionals really should be laying out all sides of this thing for the board's consideration. This is the second meeting and about the fifth email I've sent where that hasn't happened. So I'd suggest that people at least read those written reports, the written documents that I sent in those last couple of emails and get a flavor for what the other side is. Again, this is a big time deal, and you, again, council people, are our fiduciaries. I understand why an administrator and these other professionals have no interest in having more transparency or keeping transparency. You as our, and even some politicians don't want to have that, which is probably why it's happening in Trenton. But on balance, I understand privacy, I understand all these other different things, and they are real. According to these professionals who are not slouches, that stuff can be handled without doing the baby with the bathwater. We have a Trojan horse here. We have baby with the bathwater here, et cetera. And that's something I really think we gotta consider. Now, if you wanna send it in individually or as a group, whatever, that's fine. But I think, again, getting more up to speed about that and have the professionals actually tell you what's going on is important. I would suggest spending a couple grand or a couple $100, whatever it is, and getting these people who actually know about the good government and the benefits of Oprah, such as the controller of New Jersey, such as the head of the Press Association, such as these other folks who actually do this for a living and see what the benefits are for the community. That's what we ought to be doing here. We're not doing that yet. And that's
Mr.
really
Carr, your 3
unfortunate.
minutes is up.
Thank you. Yep, if I'm off base, please set me straight, have the council go through, again, real quick, Greg, go through those 2 or 3 memos I said, and have our council review
Mr. Carr, your
each
3
and
minutes
every
is
one
up.
of them and
Thank
see
you.
why that's not why that's not appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Okay, yeah, I mean, just a response to that, I think the plan to approach it individually for now and to kind of wait and see where the legislation goes. And at that point, we can ask for a more robust, which I feel like we did. I personally feel like I got pros and cons. But perhaps at that point, we'll see if we can get a more robust pros and cons. But I think I'm good for now. Let's move on to, Mr. Lois had reminded us, there was a late email.
Yes, it's more just informational,
Oh,
but
I'm
it's
sorry,
gotta
I
be on
gotta
the
close,
record.
I didn't close the hearing of citizens.
May I make a comment
Are
on
we
that?
all-
Yeah, we have no other hands up.
There's
No other hands up.
All right, I'm gonna close the hearing of citizens and then, sorry, yes?
May I make a comment about Mr. Carr there?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that I do support a resolution from this township to, object to this change to Oprah. And so I don't know if that wasn't clear from before, but I certainly do.
Thank you. Yes, so,
It was just, it's informational, but it is required to be passed on to the governing body and to be read into the record, and that's just the summary of the note sale, the ban, which was the approximate 1.5 million for the affordable housing. So, we rolled over the ban, and because of that, I just add, when I think I mentioned it during one of my budget presentations, because of that refinancing, we were able to increase our interest as well. I'm sorry, rather reduce the interest we were
Sort of look like it.
appropriating on the notes. So that's really it. There's nothing much else with this one, unless there's any questions, but it was just the fact sheet pretty much.
yes.
I have some questions, just because I received it so late, I wasn't able to go through it so carefully. And so this has to do with decisions that were made last year, not this year, doesn't relate to sheet 40B in the 2024 budget, right? Because that would be capital planning for this year. So this is kind of re-rolling debt that was already authorized last year, is on our books, and we're just reauthorizing, re-upping a 12-month ban. Is that-
Correct. That's it. Yep.
Okay, so and it doesn't show up on 40B, because that would be,
40B,
40B being, I'm sorry, capital budget current year action, it wouldn't be on the
No,
sheet,
no, no.
right?
This is past debt. It's previously issued debt. Correct.
Correct, okay.
Okay, So you say it has
It's
to be read into the
just
record? Jack?
essentially that you've received it, everybody, say, yes, you've received this abandoned document, and, Greg can annotate that, we've discussed it, and it was in the minutes. That's really it.
Okay. Then I guess we're done there. Wonderful. I think we are wrapped up. I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Wait a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. A couple links.